situations of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, no, no. Not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God damn America.
We're recording again. Live. Bring us in.
Okay, hello everyone. Climate episode. The sea is rising. The leaves are turning brown and black. It's raining yellow rain. Pod Damn America. It's a podcast. I'm Jake Flores. That's Alex Patak.
Hi, I'm Alex. Jake, I love that you introduce all of our episodes by just saying the topic in slow motion. I don't know when we started doing this, but it's happened for at least a month now. Halloween!
It just feels right. Anders Lee, hello.
Anders Lee here, hello.
Anders Lee.
Whenever do a solo episode, I'll need you to do that intro for me. Just say my name like that.
Anders, do you have any solo episode ideas where you just do poems or something like that?
Well, I was thinking of doing a Twitch stream where I play computer solitaire and talk about the 1996 presidential election.
That sounds awesome. That's going to blow the fuck up on Twitch. What if you become the biggest e-boy from that? Buying your bathwater and shit. What we should do for our intro actually is, I don't know if you saw this, I tweeted it out from the account last week, but there's this fucking insane clip of a techno guy in Germany.
Oh, yes.
And he's it's right after George Floyd was murdered and the protests are happening. And he's just in this ridiculous accent, Yeah. This is dedicated to George Floyd. And, and then it's just corny ass German techno.
And he's dancing to it. And there's MLK's voice is in the background for part of it.
Yeah. It's our intro, but better because it's worse music and just MLK and a German guy just vibing.
I have a dream.
Yeah, it's so good. Oh man,
that guy's actually very famous though, isn't he? Am I thinking of the right person?
DJ?
Probably in some places, yeah. I guess it was
DJ Race Conflict.
I guess Jeremy pointed this out that it's the MLS that was their video. For some reason, Major League Soccer was doing a DJ party. It probably got more views than one of their matches.
Yeah, it's David Guetta.
That's his name?
Yeah, dude, he's super famous.
Never heard of him.
Yeah,
right,
I can't do that. I used to go to, because my first roommate in New York was very into house music, and sometimes he would take me to shows, and I would always dance, but in a way some people took as me mocking the whole situation. So I would get in trouble at some of these, but it can be fun to go. Even if you're not on drugs.
Dancing can be fun.
Were you not mocking them, though? You were just dancing in sincerity, and they were it was just so intense. They were this guy's making fun of us.
I was just doing the Durs thing, which is somewhere in the middle. It's, it has a comedic element to it. But, that's why I became a comedian, basically, is because I had to do 4 years of dance and in high school, and I'm terrible. I can't learn choreography, but I can move. So I learned the best thing I could get out of it was laughter. So
right, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
I am imagining you doing the Sprockets dances from the old SNL skits where the avant-garde Germans, would just kind of flail their arms around.
Very similar to that, yeah.
Okay.
Anders only knows the Super Bowl shuffle. It's the only dance they taught him at dance school.
Super Bowl shuffle. Speaking of the Super Bowl in football, the Denver Broncos are going ahead with their game, and they have no quarterback. They all got COVID. or are injured.
Oh no!
I don't know what they're going to do.
So funny.
They're still going to play. They don't have anybody to throw the ball.
Who would have
awesome.
thought this professional rubbing your body on other people team would be so susceptible to disease?
Well, is the NFL not in a bubble? Are they not doing the bubble thing?
No, they're not. That's they're doing the stadiums. A lot of them have fake fans, like cardboard cutouts that they put in
Fake
seats.
fans.
And
Just like fake friends.
Yeah, just like us.
fake friends, yeah. There are some cities that are letting fans in, just like here and there. They're supposed to be socially distanced, but some are more lenient about it than others. And then there's some places where they're not letting anybody in at all, and it's very surreal.
Well, that kind of, that reminds me of, because, I mean, people bet on sports. Football, is a pretty big one. And, like, if you're going to not have a bubble, then that becomes a factor in, like, gambling and, like, fantasy football.
Right.
There's, like, a green chip you put down in fantasy football for, like, I think someone's going to get COVID, I guess. That's kind of similar to, did you read that, like, expose about Amazon that came out last week, where about them hiring, like, Pinkertons and stuff like that? And, okay, I might be getting this wrong. It might be Amazon, it might be somebody else, but a large company got in trouble.
Somebody is hiring Pinkertons.
No. Amazon is the Pinkertons one, but the second thing I was thinking about, is that in the same article or is it something else? I'll look it up, but a company got in trouble for gambling on which of their employees was going to get COVID.
Oh,
like,
Tyson.
One of those things. Tyson, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
The nasty meat men. The nasty meat men meeting in their meat offices, just putting their grubby little paws all over the board, counting their little numbers, saying who's going to get sick, who's going to get sick. They're pretty much probably the reason we're sick, because they're putting all kinds of stuff into that meat.
Yeah, the meat's not good. I mean, and that one, too, they could juke. Like, they could, purposefully infect an employee that they betted on. That's not a fair.
It's not a fair game.
If you're, if you believe the story here, if you're not a tinfoil hat weirdo, where COVID came from is a wet market, which is not that dissimilar to, what something like Tyson is.
Tyson's, yeah.
What we should have done for Thanksgiving is carve a pangolin. That would have been fun.
Oh, shit, yes.
Or a bat. We just eat a fucking bat. It's got
That'd be a
wings.
pretty good test for most Americans. Can you carve a pangolin? Do you even know what this looks like?
I mean, it's like an armadillo, so it would be especially hard. They're kind of designed against it.
No, that's Sonic the Hedgehog again. That's not a pangolin.
So what are they? It's like an armadillo with wings, basically? Is that what it is?
I don't think they have wings.
I feel like
Just
I saw photos.
It looks like a Pokemon.
It's a Pokemon. You can catch it.
They're cute, though, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah, and they have the scales. They look like what's that vegetable with the scales on the side? Like an asparagus, kind of?
Well, you know what isn't cute? And that's the prospects of mankind
Artichoke.
in the future of a changing climate.
I just need to specify, so my it's made some sense. They look like artichokes. They're artichokes with legs. They're cute artichokes that came to life.
That's true. They do look like artichokes.
This is what's going to get us out of climate change, right? Because we need less people eating meat. We need more vegetables. But people, especially in America, like eating meat. We like to know that something has been living and walking around, and now it's dead, and we're eating it.
Took that from it.
If we engineer artichoke beings, little artichoke animals, and then we kill them, we can solve climate change.
Yeah, well, that's the Green New Deal.
Yes.
The green is because they're artichokes.
The green is because they're artichokes. Well, I think it's time to eat our vegetables and go to this informative interview with great sociology extraordinaire person, Thea Riofrancos. Yeah. Let's go to the tape.
Interview.
And we're live here. Saturday, November 28th. It's another 60-degree day at the end of November in Massachusetts. The crickets are chirping, and we're settling in to record another hit podcast with my friends, Jake, Anders, and co-author of the recent book, Resource Radicals.
Author.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What?
and author of the book, Resource Radicals for petro-nationalism to post-extractivism in Ecuador, Thea Riofrancos. Thea, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Man, you botched that so hard. You were.
Yeah, but I'm going to edit around it so it doesn't
Oh,
sound
you
like
don't
I
want
did.
my author yell? I thought that was kind of funny, but you can edit.
It all stays in.
It undercuts my authority, which can't be done.
She co-authored with the Earth, with the resources.
Exactly.
You probably used resources to write it.
Unavoidable.
Caffeine.
Wow, you're an environmentalist, and yet you wrote a book on paper.
Yeah, you have an iPhone.
Oh,
How do you live with yourself?
Is that a hot button issue? The authorship title after co-authoring other books?
You've always wanted to be
Don't answer that. We're here to discuss the latest topics of the day, the changing world around us, climate change, politics in motion in the United States of America. I have a news item here. It says John Kerry has been appointed the new Climate Czar by the Biden administration. It's a new title with a role on the National Security Council. He's reporting for duty on a rescue mission to save a soldier behind enemy lines. A soldier named Mother Earth. Now, Thea, what's the problem with declaring war on climate change? Don't some atmospheric phenomenons simply need killing?
I think that the war thing is very appealing in the United States politically, because it's this idea that you can get everyone behind a war. Like, what better unifier than a war, right? Like 9/11 was like the moment that we all came together. But I think by that same token, it shows like what a dangerous metaphor it is. I mean, I guess like zooming out one more time, like the other benefit to it is that war is like the only time where like people have these like positive kind of associations with the state, like aside, I guess, from the New Deal. Like it's like, oh, the state does things during war and it's supposed to do things. So like in a sort of neoliberal society, like it's like the kind of thing that you can grab onto when like the state intervenes in the economy. But I think aside from like this kind of potential for unifying and this like idea that the state will intervene and save us from something, it basically has no positives as a metaphor, because the US does all of these horrible things in the name of war. We can very much imagine like shutting down borders, like persecuting climate migrants and refugees, propagating other wars in the name of climate war. Like it just doesn't, from a sort of left perspective, I don't think that it's the metaphor that we should be going for.
Yeah, if from an internationalist perspective, like most people on Earth are probably like kind of frightened when the U.S. is talking about a massive war. But it's kind of an odd...
What do you mean?
The metaphor, too, is kind of strange.
They're about to get a McDonald's.
The way John Kerry, who served in another war that was not the best decision, but the way he kind of construes the metaphor is like, we need everyone on board. Right. Everybody needs to be on board in America. That's why we got to appeal to Republicans and stuff. But that's like, if we're using the World War II metaphor, that's basically like if Roosevelt was like, hey, let's get the German-American Bund on board. Let's see what they have to say. Like the people he's bringing in to his organizations and stuff are people who don't want to take serious action. Like, I hate to tell you, BP, Mr. Kerry, is probably not going to do a great job of directing climate policy, but his thing has always been like markets. And that's kind of like, we did an episode about his autobiography, which I had to slog through a while ago. And to him, the genius of the Paris Accords is that it leaves things to the market. The state just kind of sets up the circles and the markets are going to fill it in. But that's probably not a really sufficient strategy, I would assume, you think.
No, and it actually hasn't worked politically. I mean, like the quote unquote pragmatic argument is that if you do stuff like cap and trade or carbon taxes or these like gentle market nudges, then Republicans will sign up for it. But like A of all, those pieces of legislation have failed in Congress, right? Because you can't get people that literally like deny the existence of this problem to like even go along with so-called sort of like middle of the road measures. But they're also like, even if we could implement them, they're like nowhere near enough of what we need to do to deal with climate change. Like you're not going to do it by just like changing the price of carbon. And to get the price of carbon high enough to actually keep fossil fuels in the ground, like the entire fossil fuel lobby would be all out against you. So you might as well like draw the enemy lines where they should be drawn, which is like the enemies are the fossil fuel companies. The enemies are the executives that have perpetrated knowingly these crimes against humanity. And like, you know, I don't know that we want to say we're going to war against them, though I wouldn't be, you know, opposed to that. But like, you know, I think it should be clear, like, who's to blame, who's responsible, and like what kind of efforts socially are we going to scale up to deal with that, where this idea of this, like you're saying, like this unifying thing of like a BP exec being on you know, on like on board with it is just like muddling what the cause and the effect of the issue is.
Right.
Well, I think a lot of the problem is John Kerry doesn't see the BP executives as the problem, and he's in charge.
No.
He's the Tsar, which, you know, we were talking about this before we started recording, but sometimes I wonder why we even have a Tsar, which is a Russian term that never existed in the United States until right now.
Not anyone specifically, this is all in parentheses or whatever, but someone should throw a gigantic turn-of-the-century bomb at him since he is a Tsar. It would be funny if it
I see
happened.
what you're saying.
Not
metaphor is such a powerful term, tool we can use here on the internet.
I mean, it would be cool if he was an actual czar, though. Like if he was actually like nationalizing oil companies and, you know, ruling them with an iron fist. That'd be cool. But it's funny because
he had a magician in charge of his family's health.
yeah. Now we're talking.
Like 10 years ago, that was a huge deal for like Glenn Beck, who was like, because the Obama administration had like a car czar, someone to like oversee the auto bailout.
It just sounds like a guy who sells used cars.
Right. It's like Little Moscow. But the term was under Reagan originally. And like, of course, conservatives freaked out about it under Obama. But it's just, I don't know why they're not picking a different name. I think earlier we were tossing around
Climate King. There you go. How hard is that?
Or climate exec.
All of a sudden,
CEO of climate.
We're all for defending the West until we're naming our climate positions all of a sudden.
John Kerry is an odd choice too, because I have been researching Iran-Contra. We were talking about this before the show, and he actually was good on Iran-Contra and like investigating the CIA for allowing cocaine to come into like major cities. But everything else he's done has sucked. But he keeps like getting new jobs, even though after he just totally got spanked in a national election. You know, when like you look at like Dukakis, that guy still is hiding, you know, in Massachusetts someplace. I looked up a picture of him from recently, and he like his posture is actually like been affected by like he looks like Gollum now. I think because of the humiliation of losing a national election, but it just like doesn't faze people like John Kerry. You know, they keep getting jobs.
Live in a cupboard is what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, you know, we were saying before, like bringing back the old band together. I feel like there's this like, we're just seeing the same ghouls. I mean, some of them are more ghoulish than others, right? Like I would put like Rahm Emanuel on like a way more ghoulish, you know, side of the list than John Kerry, perhaps. Though John Kerry did fucked up things like championing fracking and quote unquote energy independence, which always means like more oil and gas production under Obama, at the same time that he was like, you know, negotiating the Paris Agreement. So he has a contradictory record, but you know, they're just outright terrible people like Rahm Emanuel, who like covered up the police murder under his watch and terrible austerity in Chicago and all the shit that he did in the Clinton administration onward. And it's just like, why? I mean, like, why are these continually the people that we have to see in power, like after so much has been proven totally wrong about the neoliberal consensus, both in terms of like the effects that it generates in people's lives and just like the political unpopularity of it. But, you know, here we are again. It's like the same old folks.
I do feel unflappable after living in the Trump America for 4 years, and they put out who the Secretary of Energy is going to be, and it's Rex Tillerson. And then later you find out John Kerry's there, and you're like, that's fine, whatever. I know him.
So the Secretary of Energy that is like being talked about is also fucking terrible. Ernie.
Are they bringing Rex back?
Ernest.
Oh, Moniz. Yes.
Moniz. He's really bad. Also, have you seen what he like? His, I mean, not to comment on people's looks, but his hair is like very. It's like he looks like a Willy Wonka character. A of all, and B of all, he is also one of these all of the above people that was super pro fracking, and then he's like on the board of a private utility company that has like done all this lobbying against climate. And it's just like, there's no people with experience that don't have these terrible fossil fuel ties. It's kind of hard to imagine.
Right. And the situation's getting pretty dire too. So you do want to kind of look on any possible upside to an administration change. And so I am wondering, like, is there anything that like the neoliberal establishment might throw a bone to us to just keep themselves alive 5 more years? Like, are they going to like get a new Paris Climate Accord together? Would that even do anything?
They're going to go back into the Paris Climate Accord, but it's like not, I mean, it's so like the Paris Agreement is so disappointing because it doesn't do anything. It has like no enforcement mechanisms. I mean, pulling out of it was bad, but like being in it also didn't do very much. But yes, they will like get us back in the club. They will regain our international prestige. No, I mean, I think that some things certainly have changed, but they're like not really being reflected on the level of the personnel appointment so far.
Right. And under their vision of like climate change and reducing emissions, is there actually a vision there that would actually work, that would really get us under the degrees of acceleration that we need to be, or is it just pure like delusion?
It's a mix. It's some stuff that works and some stuff that was sort of like taken from the Bernie campaign and like the unity task forces, like the thing that AOC served on. So there's some good things like we need to invest in like dignified green jobs, and we need to invest in renewable energy. We need to actually use public money. We need to spend trillions of dollars. Like this was like, you know, like during the Obama administration, the talk of like trillions of dollars on public things was like an anathema. Like, so now at least you can talk about a lot of money being spent on some of the right things. But then there's also all this stuff on like carbon capture technologies, and we're going to get to net zero with like fancy machines, and like there's a lot of faith being put in that, and you can see a little bit of the influence of the fossil fuel lobby there, because that's like their big bet, that we can just not change anything but have like air sucking machines, which maybe we can have air sucking machines in the future, but like we can't delay decarbonizing to you know, waiting on these sort of tech fixes. So it's like there's some delusion. There's some good stuff that's totally because of like the Sunrise Movement and like, you know, Bernie and AOC and Markey and these like champions. And so it's not as bad as before, but it's amazing how much like myths and just ridiculous ideas are just clung to because of habit and lobbying, basically.
That was Yang's thing for a while, right? Just a giant like pump that just acts as a carburetor on the side of the earth.
Exactly.
Like it's an apple you're smoking weed out of or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of really zany ideas if you get into the geoengineering and carbon capture world, where it's like, this is obviously not going to work. This obviously has so many negative side effects if it were put into like the world will be suddenly frozen and whoops, we made a mistake.
Yang also, one of the rare points of honesty in the primary debates, just on stage one time was like, it's too late for us. I can get to space. You got all these looks from these billionaires like, you're giving away the game, man. Shut up.
Yeah, he was talking about getting to higher ground that one time when they were talking about like the ocean rising. He really embodies a space that's like masked off, basically, you know, this thing we're talking about where if you don't go full socialism, then whatever you're alluding to with these like technocratic solutions to all this stuff are hilarious if you actually say them out loud, which is what he did.
Well, I think his logo, the Y, looks like a slingshot. So I think his plan is to like slingshot everybody onto a different planet or something, or into like a constellation of spaceships.
I wonder when they were going to reveal that.
I'm back in then. That sounds cool.
What part of the election?
Yeah. I don't want to dwell too much on the doom and gloom, but I am just genuinely curious, like with the policies that Biden is proposing and what we can actually extract, no pun intended, out of his administration, like, is there a possibility that someone in the future, this is looking at it through kind of the presidential electoral lens, but is there a possibility that somebody could pick up the ball, that he gets rolling and actually get us where we need to go in like 2028 or something like that? Or obviously we don't want to be black-pilled, but is it just pretty bleak at that stage?
Yeah, I mean, I think like on the one hand, it's kind of, well, okay, first of all, a lot hinges on the Senate, right? Which we won't know until January 5th, which kind of just drives me insane. Like thinking about how, just ridiculous our political system is, and that we don't even know if we have a divided, whatever. Okay. So that's a whole thing. So, if we have Democratic control of the Senate, that's like definitely more political room to maneuver. If we don't have that, then we're more in the scenario that you're saying. And then the question is, can Democrats somehow get it together to do okay in 2022? It seems really not very optimistic because Democrats tend to do bad in these midterm elections, when they have control of the executive in general. And their strategy this time around was so bad. I mean, they lost House seats, right? And they so that's not very hopeful. And then it's like, okay, 2024. And so you kind of keep kicking the bucket down. But like, that's the pessimistic view. I think more, not so much optimistically, but maybe kind of just like leap of faith wise for my wearing my political organizer hat. I think that we have to just go full steam ahead with putting the pressure on and not sort of ourselves kick the can down the road. Oh, okay, in 2022, we'll really mobilize, or in 2024, we have to mobilize now and just keep the pressure on. And honestly, I don't even see a way for a more piecemeal climate plan without a really, 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 really militant left, because otherwise, Biden's inclination is to just get sucked to the center, which is the right in the U.S., sucked towards the right. And these cabinet appointments show that. And if they don't have any left, A, keeping them accountable, but also B, that they can point to and be those are the socialists demanding this. Can we at least do this? They actually, in a way, in order to do any of their plans, they need a socialist kind of boogeyman to be if we don't get some, piecemeal thing, then the next step is socialism, right? So in a weird kind of realpolitik way, I think the left is just 100% essential to get anything done right now.
Well, back to the Yang comment, I think that's kind of clarifying in a way what the problem is, because you have essentially an entire set of people who are pretty well off who are okay, so we'll find higher ground, or I'm selling air sucking machines. What a coincidence. But if you're a socialist listening to this, it's pretty important to understand the issue isn't just that the water will come up or it will get hotter. It's that all of the rest of the planet is this very interwoven fabric of things you depend on to live. And if any of it goes, it's a slippery slope to it all going. And that's why it's unfortunate. You really can't give any middle ground on international cooperation, on an economy that is planned and doesn't do as much damage as our economy does now. Because even if you could perma-freeze the earth to this livable temperature, you would die anyway without any kind of worldwide transformation.
Yeah, no, agreed. I mean, I think the line that there should be no squishiness about this on the left, because we will constantly be told that what we're saying is not realistic, right? It's not realistic to cut global emissions in half in the next decade, or it's not realistic to decarbonize, the energy sector by 2030. Whatever it is that we're demanding, they'll say, that's crazy. We could never do that. But then you look at the alternative and is it realistic to live in a world in which basic ecosystemic and atmospheric processes continually break down? I mean, is it realistic to live in a wildfire hell world, or where we have 30, hurricanes in one season? I mean, it's just that's not realistic either. So we have to keep flipping the script and being the current reality is not pragmatic. I mean, what's pragmatic is maybe trying to do something about it quickly now.
Right. And back to the military part of the conversation, what's interesting is a lot of these people who do consider themselves conservatives, do understand this. The military has had a good understanding of the repercussions of climate change.
Right.
For decades now. They just view it specifically as how to keep America afloat as the gunship life vest,
right,
lifeboat.
But it was a security think tank that's funded by the U.S. government that first came up with this threat multiplier concept, which is actually quite useful, right? The idea that you destabilize the climate, you destabilize ecosystems, people don't have enough water, or their crops fail, blah, 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 blah. And then the threat multiplies through all the social systems, economic systems. And it's useful. They're looking at it through a security lens of how is that going to threaten U.S. security or the security of the sort of liberal world order. But it's they're being realists about it. And if you read military reports on this stuff, it's very clear that shit is very dire. Just their solutions would make things worse for a variety of reasons we could get into, or we kind of already talked about. But yeah, no, I think that they're clear-headed about it, but they're just so within the sort of capitalist and militaristic mindset that they have no actual solutions to it.
Right.
Anytime
Slavoj
the military
Žižek
is
saying Ideology.gif. All right, Jake, yes?
I was just going to say, anytime the military is more woke than you about something, you're in very bad territory.
Right. Or even like, honestly, I read the Financial Times because I think it's like the best way to understand what capitalists think about themselves. And like, it's like, they understand the shit better. And I'm just like, how is the American like neoliberal democratic establishment? They're just like the slowest to like incorporate anything or understand anything, to the point where they're like behind the EU, behind China, behind like all these other powers that are, you know, world powers, geopolitical, capitalist, X, Y, and Z. And it just continually.
Right. They endorsed Corbyn, right? As sort of like a self-preservation, I guess, because they understand like the pitchforks are going to come one way or the other. And he's the, you know, better to come from a poet than a mass of people.
I know. I just want better enemies sometimes in America. They're disappointing.
Yeah, but what you said is 100% right. You can't be told you're not realistic when the alternative realistic world is one where there's a tornado every Tuesday and you call it Tornado Tuesday and everyone's canceling from work that day. It's not a world you can have markets in. That doesn't make any sense.
There's tacos flying everywhere because it's also Taco Tuesday.
Right, exactly. It gets a little confusing. I mean, and the other thing is like the system is producing so many crises that just present policy opportunities that Democrats don't understand how to take. I mean, by Democrats, I mean like the establishment, like, you know, whatever ones don't understand. So like over 100,000 fossil fuel workers have been laid off since March. Like, this is a moment where the fossil fuel sector is literally in crisis because of the economic recession and low demand and no one's commuting and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this is a great moment to talk about how we're going to like care for fossil fuel workers. And instead Biden gets caught up in the trap of like whether we're going to ban fracking or not. It's like, it doesn't fucking matter. The industry is in crisis. Workers are being laid off. Let's model what a just transition would look like now so we can win those folks over to the left instead of letting the right, you know, win them by saying we're going to, you know, continue to promote coal and fracking, which are dying. I mean, coal is a dying industry. There's no, like, it's dying on its own accord by just the logic of profitability. It's just like not going to happen anymore. So there's just all these boggles the mind.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're in this situation where our guy is a very easy one to trick. So he's going to fall for a lot of tricks.
Every trap. Yeah, I know. You put it there and it's so obvious and it's like Trump. So you know it's a trap, but yet still walks into it.
Trump was at least like you never knew if he would go for the trap because he's just so unpredictable on a day-to-day basis. Whereas Biden, you just put footballs in front of him and he just falls down.
Yeah.
And
watching Biden is like watching a horror film and you're in the audience screaming, "Don't go in there."
Exactly. Don't open that door. Just don't open the door. Don't open the ban fracking door. Just talk about how you're going to. Yeah.
No, they're going to be mean to you in there. They're going to be mean to you.
Right.
Because you're confused.
Why are you going upstairs?
Yeah, Trump is about to walk into the trap, and then he sees a tweet from Mario Lopez criticizing him, and he needs to spend all day responding to that instead.
This is a very far-fetched reference, but did any of you have grandparents with like the little chair that slides up the stairs instead of like walking?
I saw those infomercials.
Yeah,
sure.
My uncle had one of those, and I'm imagining Biden's in the horror house, and you're like, "Don't go up the stairs!" And he's sitting in the chair, like, "Urgh."
No.
No. Hit the down button.
I was delivering pizzas at one point last year, and there was a building that somebody would order from. So I multiple times like went through a building, and there was one of those things, and I had like the Costanza moment where I was like, "Oh, will I get in trouble if I use this?" It looks so fun.
It's great. Having hopped on that thing, it's all been downhill since then.
Or downstairs.
Yes.
So the situation we're in, we have Biden. He's the next president. Kamala Harris is president if he chokes on an ice cream or something.
Yeah, highly likely.
They both. It could happen. Anything could happen. They've both gone out of their way to say under no circumstances would they ever push forward a Green New Deal. And the government, for all intents and purposes...
No. Harris was an endorser of the Green New Deal, but she wouldn't own up to that. It was a very weird part of the debate where the moderator was like, "Didn't you?" When she, her and Pence or whatever was like, "Did you supported the Green New Deal?" And she just sort of like backed away from it.
She just started laughing, right?
As if that would cost them the election. And I'm like, literally, the Green New Deal is popular with Democrats. Like, this is not something that's going to like torpedo your electoral chances if you're just like admit to the truth, which is that you were co-signatory on this thing. But yeah, anyway, But Biden is like hates the Green New Deal and hates the label and like makes fun of the Sunrise Movement and blah 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 blah.
So maybe she's more malleable on the situation.
She is more malleable. I think she is like much more of a chameleon, and I think she'll definitely be running. Right? I mean, after he's not going to run twice.
No way. So at least for right now, the federal government's a no-go on non-market state intervention to save us. What outside groups are working on this? Like what can we push for that isn't, the New Deal?
Right.
Can states get involved? Should you be joining a 4chan?
I like that those are the two options.
These are the only things reality. I know.
Yeah. The state level, the federal level, the state level, the Chan level. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
I refuse to join
Western
8chan.
Man.
Wait. So no, I slightly disagree with the premise. I don't think that there's nothing that can be done congressionally. I feel like some good amendments could happen. Like, there will be some kind of stimulus bill. There'll probably be some kind of infrastructure bill. We can maybe get, some stuff funded, some renewable energy stuff funded that way. Who knows? I mean, I think that we should still be fighting for that stuff. We shouldn't totally give it up. And, we know like Bernie was called like the amendment king. Like you can like actually get progressive stuff in by just like, staying on top of it. And I think we need external groups to put pressure on Congress in that way. I also think we should definitely be doing state level stuff. We were talking about Maine earlier, a great Green New Deal candidate won in the Maine State House. We have a socialist caucus in the New York State House, which is amazing. We might have a socialist caucus in the city council in New York City if they win those elections. So, there's a lot of great progressives at various levels of office and leftists. So I think we should keep doing that, keep doing the insurgent primary campaign stuff. I love that. And then I think otherwise you join DSA, join Sunrise, like get involved. DSA is launching a huge Green New Deal campaign. We have a bunch of actions in mid-December. December 12th is going to be a National Day of Coordinated Actions. We're going to be targeting a lot of these Democratic establishment types and putting the pressure on. So there's a lot to get involved in. I think like the danger is actually the sort of like red pilled or black pilled or whatever you want to call it. Like the danger is just like nothing is possible and like the 4chan, like the where.
Red pilled is goes. When you want to save the climate, but you still hate women. It's a terrible path a lot of people go down.
Yeah. And there are a lot of things too that like, we can't count on Biden to just automatically do them, but there are a lot of things he has agreed to that under his authority as president, he would be able to just implement without Congress that we can hopefully get out of him. But yeah, and I think the local level is really important too, because in Portland, Maine, they just passed a municipal Green New Deal. Mm-hmm. I sound like Nancy Pelosi over here. Green Dream.
Good morning.
And there's like Green New Deal, but also at the local level, this is something DSA has been working on a while. Municipalization, tough word too. Yeah. Of utilities.
Yeah, there's a great campaign in New York, the Public Power Campaign. That is like I'm sort of indirectly working on a bit, like but yeah, to like just have actual public ownership of the energy system, create jobs that way, retrofit buildings, like all of that. There's also great legislation in Congress that I think various members of the expanded squad are going to push to try to get like elements of the Green New Deal kind of on the agenda. I mean, there is it's just like, it's easy to give up. It's always easier to give up. It's easier to not do anything. But I think that it's just like the planet asks us to get involved. It's really important. And
what else do you have going on?
Yeah, exactly. Like we're doing, no one has anything going on anymore. Also, like politics is fun. I mean, I seriously think that like it is like nice to have friends and comrades and do things together. And, it's just like, dude, this pandemic would be so much worse if I didn't have funny DSA Zoom meetings all the time. I mean, seriously, I enjoy that.
Yeah, it kind of boggles my mind at how people take the fact that a socialist candidate for president of the United States, the hardest office to elect a socialist to in the world, got millions of votes, and that's evidence that everything is hopeless. Like, because
he
didn't completely win the most impossible.
Totally. And like that, the how big a threat that was is like evidenced in the fact that like the entire rest of the fucking primary field needed to leave the primaries and endorse this, the zombie president that we're going to have. I mean, like if it wasn't a threat, they wouldn't have had to done that. It would have just died on its own accord. But actually that was like the most popular option.
Yeah.
And then we were in the actual election, and it was all talking points like if he did win, even though he didn't. That was very confusing.
Exactly.
Right. We got to see the campaign they would have run against Bernie Sanders, as if that's not the same campaign they run every 4 years, no matter what.
I'm friends with a lot of boomers on Facebook from just doing stand-up and going to random places and having people who I guess are also a comedian, in some weird part of Alaska or whatever, add me. I don't know where this came from, but lots of boomers on there. And I got to watch throughout the entire like Biden-Trump part of the campaign. Memes just come out that were like fucking Biden's head next to, Trotsky and Lenin and shit on that fucking thing that they're always on. Like they just talked about him like he was a communist anyway. It's insane.
Right. Yeah, I just like can't wrap my head around this like talking point like of like the sort of Democratic establishment that like what the problem is that like socialism and defund the police and Green New Deal like cost the it's like they're gonna do that anyway. Also, like none of these candidates embrace defund the police for better or worse, but like it's like they're gonna do that anyway. You might as well just have a positive vision. And I actually think like it's the moderate, like centrist candidates that have no way to respond to that. Because when Fox calls them, abolitionists or Green New Deal supporters or socialists, they're just like, no, I'm not. But they don't have anything to say. Whereas if you're AOC, you're like, yes, I support the Green New Deal. Let me explain to you why, right? And if you just have no vision, then you can't respond to those kinds of attacks. So I'm not convinced at all that, whatever. Obviously, we could get into the thorniness of like how you run campaigns in some of these more conservative districts, but like I'm not. It just like seems like they just do it. They do it regardless.
Yeah. Well, something I wanted to follow up on too that you were mentioning before we started recording is the new sort of drive to organize workers who have been laid off from energy companies or the extraction industry, which I think is a really interesting concept because that's always the argument that's thrown out is like, we have to counterpose the environment and the economy, and these people want their jobs, and they're never going to accept an environmental stimulus because that threatens their job. But these people are getting laid off. Like, what are some of the ways that we can activate these people and sort of merge climate politics with working class politics? Yeah,
and like the Obama administration did a lot of damage to this idea of like, because they talked about a just transition or like retraining for workers in the fossil fuel sector. But they never really followed through on it. And even before Obama, you had Clinton and NAFTA and this idea of like, we were going to retrain all of the people that lost their jobs because when industry left. And like, it's like a story that they've heard so many times, that union workers have heard so many times, and it's never been true. And so I definitely understand the skepticism, but that's why I was saying that like right now when the industry is imploding sort of by its own accord, I don't want to exaggerate it, like the oil and gas industry still exists, but like there's, declining sales, declining profits, all this stuff, like declining demand. That would be a great messaging moment for Biden to step in and say, this is exactly what we're going to do for the 100,000 men and women who have lost their jobs. Like, we're going to set you up with this training program, with this pension, with this like guaranteed, salary and benefits or whatever it is. And this is what my administration would do. And it wouldn't even be that expensive. It's a drop in the bucket compared to what we overall need to invest to transition our energy system. But it just seems like it's just such a win-win, like, for a Democratic president to sort of make those types of arguments. But yeah, no, it's like it's a small part of the working class. I mean, like most of the working class is not employed in the fossil fuel sector. Most of the working class is like nurses and
what?
Yeah, I know. Shockingly, we're not all on the rig. So it's like I sometimes think it gets like overplayed in the sense that like it's not that many workers that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But those workers are. For various reasons have been like dramatized into this like wedge issue. And they of course have real concerns. But again, like some of those concerns are just like the literal economics of these industries, especially coal, that are just collapsing. And these regions like Appalachia, Western Pennsylvania, wherever, that are like economically being disinvested in. And so I think the response just needs to be like, this is exactly what we would do. But they don't They don't do that because they don't really care about the working class. I mean,
what green jobs are we going to put the hillbilly elegy guy into?
Oh my God. Yeah.
He could talk on a different TV channel.
Yeah, exactly. There is a job for everyone
That's
with
what
a
he
jobs
does.
guarantee, including the people you dislike the most. In fact, it is fun to think, what job would I give to this terrible person?
Right. The one thing that will remain intact is podcasters will get to choose the jobs for other people.
Oh, definitely.
And that is the basis of the program. It's
Right.
confusing through the American political lens because a lot of people, and this is like intentionally set up, think that the only people who are quote unquote working class are people who descend into a mine and emerge covered in soot every day. So it's like this coveted group that doesn't exist.
You have to have the smudged coal on your face to be working class in America. You have to be on a Bluebell ice cream box.
You have to be Derek Zoolander's dad. These are the only options we have to win the election.
Yeah.
And also, like, the origins of, like, the amazing militant, like, mine workers unions in, like, West Virginia and everywhere else are all these struggles over basically health and safety, and you could call them environmental, you know, in the sense of, like, black lung, like, the safety issues, and they knew their enemy, and they, you know, I think that, like, you know, a smart worker still knows, like, the enemy is the boss, right? Like, the enemy is not the environmental regulations, which, again, are in many cases the outcome of labor struggles to even get those regulations. But, you know, shit has gotten very twisted.
Yeah, your boss chopped off the top of a mountain. He's not the good person in that situation.
Exactly.
That's super villain shit.
Right, like look at what's happened to Don Blankenship. I remember a while ago that they were like, "Oh, he's such a big power player in West Virginia. He's just he controls everybody's thoughts in West Virginia. They love him there." And he got like indicted for something, and now he was like the Constitution Party candidate. He's like a joke. Like these people aren't as scary as we make them out to be.
Yeah.
I do have a little hope in how alarmed people are somewhat less to the left on the political spectrum. Like, did you guys catch the Erin Brockovich op-ed yelling at Joe Biden last week?
Oh, I didn't read it, but I skimmed. Yes, I remember seeing that.
Well, I mean, people are scared, right?
She's coming
out of the woodwork, and she's like, "It's me." From the
I read the first sentence and the last one.
Yes, I'm just admitting to having
That's
Twitter
how I
brain.
read now.
Yeah, I had Twitter brain, and I wrote, of course, a 1,000-tweet thread based on a headline that I read. Didn't actually read.
We've
the
all
article.
been there. No, what did it say? I did not even see it, let alone skim it.
She's paying attention to Joe Biden's administration picks. Let me see if I can get it up here. Admittedly, the only reason I looked this up is because I'm writing an Erin Brockovich parody where she has to hunt the Grinch.
Erin Brockovich?
It's Erin Brockovich.
Okay.
And she has to prove that a corporation is hiding the Grinch. But that's not what we're here to talk about today.
What did she say in the article?
Eric Brockovich town is so toxic.
You're reading it now?
Put a marker here. No, I had it up before. I just feel like I kind of thought somebody else would have seen this too.
Well, she's good on the water issue, and that's been something that, like, you know, both parties have refused to address in places like Flint, where I believe they still have dirty water. Is there any movement on that?
I got it.
Okay.
It's contesting a DuPont official is being recommended for, I think, Department of Energy or something.
Right.
Michael McCabe.
Oh, I don't even know about this school. More of that.
And did you ever see Dark Water? I only know how to communicate through movies I've seen.
That's not about the... No, I'm thinking
I thought we were talking about
Water.
Snowpiercer. I was promised that. I have a whole Snowpiercer take. That is
Ooh.
never going to see the light of day. No, I actually don't. I think. Anyway, go on, please.
We simply won't discuss Snowpiercer. So my messaging you to get on the show was like, "Hey, I want to talk about Snowpiercer." Do you
it was so deceptive, and I was like, "Yes, I've been waiting for this moment to talk about Snowpiercer." Here we are, 1 hour in, and no discussion of Snowpiercer.
I just felt like we kind of covered it, so I skipped my question. But look, we're talking about Dark Water now, a much worse movie that you could probably just not see.
I don't waste my time.
It's like barely a movie. It's more of like a public service announcement that the DuPont Corporation has put a chemical that never dissolves into all of the water in the world. And apparently this guy Michael McCabe was like somewhat involved in that, and he is being recommended to essentially protect the environment.
We talked about that movie when we did an episode about DuPont and how Joe Biden has lead paint poisoning in the brain.
Right. Yeah.
It's all connected. Okay.
Look, the movie sucks, but don't drink any water from now on. It's not safe.
Okay.
Do you think, Jake, that's maybe why Biden is considering this guy, because of the DuPont connection? Jake has a whole theory on this. It's very interesting.
I went tinfoil hat on my own conspiracy theory, so I think everything Biden does is because he has pain brain. So yes, the answer is yes. That's also why he eats ice cream. I don't know.
His brain always feels hot, and he has to cool it with the ice cream.
Yeah.
That's the only ways to stop the paint. Yeah, but you have Aaron Brockovich getting mad. You have people in MSNBC kind of freaking out. I do think there is enough general concern around the issue that maybe more actual constructive action is on.
Right. We'll have World War Zero is what we will do.
Oh, right. John Kerry's initiative to stop climate change is called World War Zero: emissions.
Well, it's just like with how the Onion helped Biden with their like kind of kooky uncle character guy about Biden they would do the same. They did a similar thing with John Kerry where they'd make him out to be like a spy, and they're doing, and that I think it went to his head, and now he needs to name his organization World War Zero because he's internalized.
It's just like I don't get what the metaphor, because like zero's before one, so we're going back in time and we're going to fight the pre-World War I war, and then like it's the war to end all wars, or just like what's going on?
Yeah. I think he's trying.
He's
to
really
do
into
like
smashing pumpkins.
I think he's trying to do like an Osama bin Laden thing, because that's the Obama admin thing, is we killed Osama bin Laden and we're going to find and shoot climate change.
Right.
And then you won't have to worry about it anymore. And we can go back and
got
party
him
in the street.
Don't worry.
We got him. We'll have The Rock announce climate change defeated.
Famously, Biden was not in the room for the Osama bin Laden raid because they knew he couldn't keep his mouth shut, or he would accidentally.
And now he's trying to get back in on it. He's trying to play the long game.
Sneaky Joe. They call him Sleepy Joe, but really it's Sneaky Joe.
Sneaky Joe. All right. Okay. Well, Thea, thank you so much for coming on. I do feel slightly less black-pilled than before an hour ago. What are you working on right now, and where can our listeners find you?
They can find me on Twitter. I'm easy to find because my name is very weird. They can find me doing DSA organizing. Everyone should join DSA now. We just had a great recruitment drive, which is ongoing, but we're like 85,000 plus members, biggest socialist organization in our lifetimes in many generations. So very exciting. Join DSA. And then you can work with me and other great comrades on winning a Green New Deal, which is the project for our next decade. So get with it.
Oh, yeah.
So your plug is like a contest to work with you.
Yeah, exactly. You too can be in Zoom meetings with me literally 5 times a week.
Look, I'm doing it right now. It's a thrill.
It's fun, right?
You want to be here, folks. It feels great.
Exactly. You get to see all these funny books behind me. They're all the same because they're the
okay. So
books.
She's in front of a bookshelf with
I know. No one comments. Literally, no one comments. I used to make jokes about it preemptively because I'm like, is anyone going to say anything about this ridiculous bookshelf, which is obviously fake books behind me? And no one ever made the joke. So now I'm just like, whatever. But
I thought they were National Geographics.
No, they're real books because if you are a Dig subscriber, the Dig is another podcast. We won't discuss it today. But if you're a Dig subscriber,
please don't mention the Dig.
You get books in the mail, and those are the books.
And they all come with a certain Dig layout?
No, they're just like verso books. So actually, a bunch of them are Planet to Win. There's State by Sam Stein, which is a great book.
I see.
There's lots
of
copies.
80 copies of your own book behind you.
Yeah, I know. I just live, it's a very narcissistic scene over here. I live amongst myself.
What's happening is it's just 3 like mostly unemployed comedians just being like, this is what it looks like when you have a job. You just got a bookshelf full of yellow and white.
Exactly. That's what they give you when you get a job.
It is a very powerful move that you do Zoom calls with like a bookshelf behind you that's just fake. Because that's a thing. Like Danzig used to do those videos where he's in front of his big library of spooky books and he would pull one out and read about werewolves and shit to you. Right. It's a good aesthetic.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Anyway,
How many of
thanks
your
for
books are about
noticing.
werewolves?
I just like to, sometimes pull out my girlfriend's copy of Remembrance of Things Past and just kind of like have it near
That is a
me
good move. That is a
without
good move.
addressing
Yeah,
it.
you can't see it, but Andrews is now pulling out all his books. Does anybody else have something to plug? Anders, how about you?
Join DOSA and the Eco Socialist Caucus.
Join it.
No offense, but don't join Extinction Rebellion. Can I say that? Is that uncomradely?
Oh shit, getting spicy.
I can't think of like any person who will be offended by
No, they will come at. I've had another time we can talk about Twitter, some Twitter issues I've had. But yeah,
Okay.
no, they're out there. They might be listening.
Listen, if that person exists, they are listening and they will be mad at
Oh,
us.
definitely.
Hey, I have someone very in my family who is a member, and we've argued about it.
All right, that's a whole other episode. See, these things write themselves. Jake, do you have anything you want to plug?
No, just my other show, While You Mad, and our Patreon. Please listen to our bonus episodes and support the show, and review us on iTunes and all that shit.
Oh yes, including the John Kerry one, in which someone reminded me recently. Alex correctly predicted, this is a year and a half ago, that Joe Biden would win the election.
Wow.
I'm very smart.
Wow. Did you win anything? Did you win money?
No, just that recognition.
Just recognition.
Post
Just the
facto.
respect of your peers.
Yeah.
A one
You
of
didn't win that.
lifetime of real friendships.
The lamest bragging rights of all time.
Yeah, support our show so that we can afford yellow books to put behind our Zoom calls. And I'm also going to plug Ballin' Out Super and Theater of Delights, my other podcasts. And that is it for us for another week, dear listener. Go out and propagate that you might change the world.
Change it.
Oh, yeah,
Finished.
You improvised to sign off very well there. I'm impressed.
Yeah, that was good.